fire in the south quarters. Fetch water, quickly. The building is starting to collapse.